morning.
Morning.
This is Patrick Russell from the Making History Project. I'm interviewing Rock Merrit for the second time. This interview is taking place on October the 16th, 2014 in Dallas, Texas. And this interview is being conducted by the Making History Project for a project named War and Peace, Memories from World War II. When we last spoke, we were in Normandy at Lafayette on a cool, brisk day for the 70th anniversary of the Normandy invasion. And why don't we continue with Market Garden, because I don't think we got to that point. What was your involvement in Market Garden?
Okay. When we came out of Normandy, I think in around, July the 15th or something like that, 33 days from June the 6th anyway, And they held a regimental formation, and the total count was 880. That meant we went into Normandy with 2,152 men, and we come out 33 days later with 880, which is about a 70% casualty rate. That included over 300 killed, and the rest of them wounded or prisoners of war. So we had that memorial formation after Normandy. Then they gave everybody, those 880, a 5 or 7 day leave. So some went to Ireland, Scotland, and London, and what have you. When we came back, and everybody had been taking their seven day leave, we started training again. And I recall around the middle of August, we got a call to go to the airport. We was going to jump in front of George Patton's Third Army. And we rolled up and everything, got all the planes loaded with equipment bundles, what have you, and got in the planes, and the word came down that Patton was sitting on our drop zone, so they canceled the drop for Normandy. So we went back to Nottingham, England, and then later on we got another one. This time, you guessed it, it was Patton sitting on the drop zone the second time, so they called that off. Now we got alerted for Operation Market Garden. We were told it was a British operation, would be commanded by the Corps, General Browning, I believe his name was, British, that we'd be under his command. So they selected Sunday, September the 17th to go. I remember it was a nice, brisk, sunny day, about 70 degrees outside, beautiful. Yeah. When we took off, 10:30, something like that in the morning, and flying over Nijmegen. The 82nd Airborne Division was to drop in Nijmegen. The 101st, they were to be dropping in front of the General Dempsey's Second Army, and they was to take bridges and causeways and what have you, and all the way up to Nijmegen, meet us up in Nijmegen. We were to take Nijmegen, the city of Nijmegen, and all the high grounds around there, and eventually the 82nd did take the Nijmegen Bridge. Contrary to a lot of people say, I was told by a lieutenant colonel that nobody was given the mission of taking the Nijmegen Bridge until we landed. After we landed and what have you, on the original thrust, it should have been in it, but nobody was supposed to take it. So anyway, 504, under the command of Colonel Tucker, they took the Nijmegen Bridge and what have you. We had, on the drop zone, in my area, we had very few. We captured one German on a 3-day pass on a bicycle. Some of the other sections had a little, like Leonard Funk from C Company 508. They run in some anti-aircraft guns and they knocked them out. Leonard Funk did and his crew. And I'm a section sergeant with 4 machine guns attached to me, and in my possession, and I was assigned to A Company 508. In other words, when I jumped, I was to assemble with A Company, and I did. We assembled A Company intact with my machine guns attached to them, all within 1 hour. We were ready to go. So we moved out to the high grounds around outside of Nijmegen, and they put me and my 4 machine guns on a roadblock, Gardner Road. By this time now, it's probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Everything was quiet. I dug my 4 machine guns in, had them cross-fired on this road. And next morning, I go back to the company ACP to see what's going on. A Company's not there. They moved out during the night and left me unsupported by a rifle company, nothing else. 4 machine guns on a crossroads, all by ourselves, period. No one around me, nothing.
How did something like that happen?
I don't know. See, well, somebody, when they got ready to move out, A Company to move in the city of Nijmegen, A Company and B Company, evidently, somehow or another, they forgot they had a section of machine guns in a roadblock. We were told, if you get lost or something, report to the Nijmegen Bridge. Now I've got 20 men and myself, and I'm, mile and a half from the city of Nijmegen, and I headed for Nijmegen. 4 machine guns, 4 squads, at 8 o'clock in the morning, Monday morning, 18th.
How did you make the decision to leave?
Well, there was nobody around me. I'm all by myself. And going with what I was told, if you get lost, I wasn't lost, but somebody was lost around me, and so I just said, go to the bridge, you know? So I headed for the bridge.
So your training told you that at that point, you needed to get the heck out of there.
Yeah, so
And this is to protect yourself and your men.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got to the city of Nijmegen, the skirts of mine. I'm walking down the street. I'm going by the Bahnhof, the train station. I've got 10 men on one side of the street, 10 men on the other. 2 squads on each side of the street. And I'm leading them. And all the people from Holland, from the city of Nijmegen, come out. They were hugging people and giving them apples and orange juice and wine and everything. Now I looked back once and I couldn't even see my 10 men on each side of the street, but for the civilians, right? Then all of a sudden, an MG 42 or 43, 34 busted right down the middle of that highway, the street, firing. I looked back, I didn't see a civilian time. I seen nothing but 20 men laying flat on their belly from that machine gun. Then they rolled over and what have you, and we got out off the sidewalk, you know, where where they couldn't hit us because there's buildings on each side of us.
How did the civilians get out of there so fast?
I don't know.
They got out of there faster than your men.
They were houses that belonged to them there, I guess. And when that machine gun pumped, of course, keep in mind, I hit the deck too. I'm down and poor. Then I get up to look. It was, it was probably 15 or 20 seconds left, and that give plenty of time for them civilians to get into their houses or what have you. So anyway, they left. And I moved on, and this German machine gun didn't fire more on me until we got where I could see the bridge. I could see the bridge, and they fired again. Then I was deployed 2 squads on one side of the street, 2 squads on the other. Keep in mind these buildings everywhere. We're in town. So now by this time it's probably 10 o'clock in the morning. And I figured, I made an assumption, I guess, that my A company that I was attached to come in that town and took the town, and they crossed the bridge and left a few stragglers, Germans. That's what I thought. So we kept on firing back and forth with M1 rifles and machine guns. And at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we're still there.
So you're still pinned down. You can't move.
Now, you can tell the difference between an American machine gun firing and a German. There's no, it's just different.
How do you describe it? One sounds like a buzzsaw, right? Isn't that
Well,
how they describe it?
We fire 600 rounds a minute. The German MG-34, that was our light machine gun. It fired 1,200 rounds a minute. And the MG-42, it fired something like 1,500 rounds a minute. And the American was more a thub type shooting, I guess, where our Germans was just going like that. You could tell the difference. So S2 of the 508 was back somewhere off the drop zone, wherever regimental headquarters was, They were always behind the line. They heard this man, and Colonel Lindquist said, "That's an American machine gun in town." So he said to a lieutenant, S3, take a lieutenant and a couple of soldiers, go into Nijmegen. I want to know who in the hell is firing them American machine guns.
And this is coming from the other side of the bridge.
Yeah, no, we ain't got nobody across the bridge yet.
Okay.
It's back in the rear.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there. By this time, it's time the S2 lieutenant got there and his 2 privates. He come and he said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I think A Company must have took this town, and they must have took the bridge across, and they left some stragglers here. These Germans are firing me, and we can't move." And he said, "Sergeant, you're the only game in town." Said, "Yeah, A Company did go in. They went into A Company, into Nijmegen. They lost a lot of people at midnight fighting, shooting each other and what have you. But they got word to move out around daylight because the Germans were counterattacking our drop zone, the one that the gliders was going to come in on that day. We had to have that, so they pulled them out. So anyway.
So here you thought that the Americans were already on the other side of the bridge.
I did. I thought there was.
And in fact, you're the only one there.
We were the only ones there. Only 20 people, 21 Americans in town. So he pulled me back. We got back at about 5 o'clock on the 18th. My battalion commander was Shields Warren. He jumped in as a battalion exec. The battalion commander, Colonel Batchelor, he got killed on D-Day. and Colonel Warren, Major Warren, he took over as a battalion commander. Shields Warren, and he was still, no, he was a colonel now, because Bachelor got killed in Normandy, and he took over. And before Operation Market Garden, they'd promoted him to lieutenant colonel. He's now a battalion commander. So I reported to him what happened. I said, "Sir, they left me out on that damn roadblock. A squad could have wiped me out, basically, But anyway, he detached me from A Company there, because I'd been in town all day, because A Company was going to attack Devil's Hill at 6 o'clock that evening. He detached me and attached me to C Company, Leonard Punk's company, and he took the other section saw the machine gun that had 4 guns and 20 men, attached them to A Company. A Company attacked Devil's Hill, got a lot of people killed, and the buck sergeant in charge of the section that took my place, he got killed. Bolin, Sergeant Bolin, he got killed also. We lost a lot of men on Devil's Hill. So anyway, we, the next day, on the drop zone, gliders were still coming in, and the Germans still trying to take it, and we fought all day for that. And they had the biggest dogfight of German fighters and American P-51s and 47s that I'd seen. I didn't see that many in Normandy. These was fighting over city of Nijmegen, and I'm going to tell you, the P-51s, they done a job on the German jets, You could see them all shot down. It was a big fight, in there. So anyway, all the glidermen come in, all the heavy equipment come in. We got this secured. And we moved on in to the outskirts of Nijmegen. We didn't move in town. 504 with some British rubber boats or something. They crossed the river and took the bridge. Now the bridge is in China Dust. And we stayed there off and on, I think, about 2 weeks. Then we moved us across the river and attached us to some British company over there, And then we stayed over there with them. Practically, as far as I'm concerned, I would say the end of September, after we crossed over the bridge, as far as I'm concerned, the war from the 508 was over. We were over there, and all we did, we was in the defense. We didn't attack at all. All we had listening posts out every night, at the Germans. We knew that they fed their main meal at midnight every night. We knew that, what have you. And of course, 10 miles beyond us was the Arnhem, where the British was. But when we moved over, General Dempsey's 2nd Army had come all the way up, and they had got to Nijmegen, and they stopped there for Nijmegen for some reason or another. Well, they had tea, and they stayed all night. Colonel Tucker, he wanted to take his 504 and go over there and help out the British 1st Airborne Division that was over getting slaughtered. But Gavin didn't have the authority to let him do that, because we was working under the British Corps Commander. And where's he at? He's in a basement somewhere in one of the big buildings with the wrong crystal in his radios. He couldn't communicate with nobody. And they got Major Frost of the British, and to this day no one has answered me. why was a major at the end of the bridge at Arnhem in charge of a division? Where was the colonels and where was the brigadier generals and all that? I know where the corps commander was. Where was the division commander? All that stuff, you know. Nobody, they don't want to talk about it. Nobody. I've talked to British officers and whatever. They don't talk about it, you know. But anyway, we didn't go over until the British Second Army got to Arnhem. But before they got to Arnhem, how did the people get, Frost people got? They withdrew themselves under the darkness, separate routes, really I guess, amazing feat to withdraw out. And they just withdrawed out, and with the time of British Second Army got there, there wasn't nobody on Arnhem Bridge. They'd already pulled back, you know. And I think we stayed there something like 63 days total, and we marched 25 miles back to get on trucks or something, and they moved us back to Soissons, France, you know, in there. The guy that wrote the book, Bridge Too Far, Corselis Ryan, in 1973, he come to Fayetteville, North Carolina, when I was a Corps and Post Sergeant Major, and he went in to talk to Lieutenant General Seitz, the Corps command. And General Seitz says, well, I didn't make that operation, Market Garden, but my Sergeant Major did. He said, will you mind if he come in here and let? He said, no, he come in. He gave me and the General an autographed book, Corselis Ryan. He was dying with cancer then, but nobody knew it, you know, what have you. And the premier showing was in Fayetteville that night. If I recall, they had, the mayor had 25 people that had made the Market Garden operation jump up on stage after the movie had showed to answer questions and what have you, you know. So General Seitz, he asked Corselis Ryan, he said, in your opinion, because it took him 5 years of research to write, to publish that book, said, in your opinion, what was the 3 most important things that went wrong with Operation Market Garden? And he said, well, number 1, I don't understand 15th German Army under the command of Field Marshal von Rundstedt. He was the guy that defended Normandy, and Hitler relieved him because we come ashore. But now he called him back to active duty, and he was reorganizing the 15th German Army in Amsterdam, in Holland there. So how can you, and we flew over all the time taking pictures for this invasion. How do you miss a German army in Arnhem, a German army? And he said, you picked the wrong day also. On the 17th, I guess at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, von Rundstedt's army was on the road going to Aachen, Germany, where the first American army had gave Aachen, Germany, an ultimatum. They was either surrender, they was going to burn the town down or something like that, and they're sending him. But when he's, and here come the British Airborne Division dropping, they turned around and they stopped, what have you. So he said, they picked the wrong day. You know, I don't know how they didn't see that 15th German Army being organized. And he said, the second thing, that captain from the 82nd Airborne Division, it was a briefer, a tail briefer for Operation Market Garden. He would leave out the bridge at Arnhem. And Field Marshal Montgomery would say, what about the bridge at Arnhem? and the captain would say, "Sir, that bridge is too far," you know. And finally, Montgomery told General Gavin, that captain, I think, got combat fatigue. Take him off the briefing. They did. They let him go on leave or something. They took him off. And he said, the third reason, said you only had one commander in the entire United States Army, or entire the whole world, that had ever commanded a unit, airborne unit that big. And that's Matthew B. Ridgway of the 18th Airborne Corps, which is at 15,000 feet above Arnhem and Nijmegen, watching the procedure go on, see? And so he said, you had the wrong commander in there. Should have had Matthew B. Ridgway. That's his three things he said given to him. So anyway, then with that, he signed the book, gave me one, and gave General Seitz one, and less than a year later he died with cancer. Of course, he was Schwein did. So that was the end of that. We did not go back to England. We went to France, and we stayed in Soissons, France, which is, I don't know, 20 or 30 miles from Reims, France. And we gave 50% of the command a 3-day pass to Paris. We turned our guns in to be blued and re-up, you know. And so about the time that we'd completed the 3-day pass into Paris, what have you, it was 17th day of December. I was in NCO club. I was shooting dice. I'll never forget it. I won $1,400 shooting dice. And they come over there, hear this, now hear this. Everybody report back to your barracks. You've been alerted to go to the Battle of Bulge at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. And it's 11 o'clock. We moved back in the barracks. We ain't got no weapons. We turned them in. I don't know how fast they got. We got M1 rifles, machine guns in Cosmoline. We stayed up all night taking, of course, we had cleansing material, gasoline and stuff to clean them. So we got. And this is on the morning of the 18th. They put us in cattle trucks, and it's snowing, and we're taken out. Rumor had it that we were supposed to went into Bastogne. The 101st was supposed to went on to Vilsam. Rumor had it that the 101st was not ready. They didn't get ready for 6 o'clock in the morning. And General Gavin changed the orders that we would go, the 82nd would go to Vilsam, and the 101st would stop at Bastogne. You know, how true that is, I don't know, but they don't want to talk about it because that'd be safe, you know. And of course, Gavin now, keep in mind, he's a Corps commander. The Corps commander's not there. The 101st Division's commander's in the States, and Gavin is a brand new 2-star general. And McCullough, the guy that said nuts to the Germans, he was in charge of 101st, and he was a brigadier general. And so poor old General Gavin, he got in his Jeep and he went all over alerting all them people in Miami. I guess he done a tremendous job. I don't know where Ridgway was. Seemed to me like he was in England or someplace. I don't know. Maybe he was in the States, but he didn't get there. I know that until Gavin, I don't know, I guess we'd been in the Battle of Bulge maybe a couple of weeks before Ridgway ever showed up in our, and I don't know if Major General Taylor ever did show up. I don't know. But, well, we know one thing. He wasn't there when that German come in and requested they surrender, you know, and the German, he didn't know. He wanted an explanation what nuts meant. And he said, in American language, it means go to hell. That's what they said, you know. So anyway, we unveiled some, and we was there on Christmas Eve. That's how long we'd been there, from the 17th. Keep in mind, we fought our way into Vilsum. We didn't just walk in. On Christmas Eve, we got the word, we're going to withdraw.
When you shipped in on the 18th?
Huh? No. Well, that didn't go over good with the troops. 82nd had never withdrawn. They was always forward. Every piece of land they took it and kept going. But they come back, and Gavin issued an order that it was not a withdrawal. It was a withdrawal to straighten out the line. We knew that was wrong, because this lieutenant from A Company, he blowed the bridge at Vilsum when the first Mark 6 tank got on it. Here's a bridge down and a Mark 6 tank sitting there. That's how close they got. So if we hadn't withdrawn on Christmas Eve, you know, they would overrun us. There was no doubt about it. If that 6th German armored division had got across there, keep in mind, we didn't have no armor there. All we had was the 508 Parachute Infantry Regiment. That's all infantrymen. That's all we had. What do we have? Anti-tank weapons was called a bazooka, you know. And all it could do, if you hit the tread of a Mark 6, it would knock a tread off. But if you didn't do that, it just bounced right off of it, you know, off of the tank, you know. So anyway, we moved back, I don't know, straightened this line out about, I guess we marked about 10 miles that night. And we stayed there, I think, in a defensive position until about the 4th of January of 45, and then we attacked back towards Vilsum all day long. It took us, but we got into, this time we didn't go into town. We went up on the hill looking down on Vilsum, you know, what have you, and we went into defensive position there. Then they come out with while they were in that defensive position, the regiment, let's see, they had, I'm trying to figure out how many companies they had. We had 4 in a battalion, that's 12. We had 15 companies. Every company in the regiment and every company in the division, quite a few people, selected one man for a 10-day leave back in the States. The criteria for that was who had been in the front lines the longest, who had the most decorations in there, and what have you. And me and another guy was tied. George Stuckert, you've heard me talk about George Stuckert. He was the company commander. He called me down there and said, you know, we got a tie here and we're going to flip a coin. They flipped a threepence, a British, something equivalent to a nickel or dime, and I called heads and it fell heads. Then I had to go to see Colonel Warren. I'll never forget, he was in the CP, it was snowing, had his back to me, and he's looking out the window. And I didn't have no platoon leader. Both my platoon leaders, a first lieutenant and second lieutenant, had been wounded, medevac back. And I was the only, all by myself. And he said, I understand you're the one that's selected to go for 10 days leave in the States. I said, yes, sir. And he said, I was thinking about putting you in for a battlefield commission. What do you think about that? I said, sir, I'd rather have 10 days with my wife with those silver leaves on your shoulder. He turned around right back fast and stuck his hand out and he said, I don't blame you a damn bit. But he said, your platoon will be ready for you when you come back. And it was. When I come back, they'd already promoted someone to a tech sergeant. I was a staff sergeant. That's all I was authorized. While I was gone, all platoon sergeants went up to sergeant first class, tech sergeant. And they had a tech sergeant. By the time I got back in England, in La Havre, France, the day the war ended. It was, what, May the 9th, I believe, 1945. And I got there, and he sent this guy that took my place and reported down to someplace in France to set up an R&R center for our troops. And I took over the platoon, and I stayed with it until the 508 deactivated in New Jersey in February the 6th, I think, 1946, period. And of course, then before it was deactivated, I joined the regular army. Before, I was a U.S., you know. And when I joined the regular army and we deactivated the 508, we were told you're either going to Fort Benning, Georgia, or Fort Bragg, North Carolina. That was, at that time, was only 2 airborne posts we had in the Army. So I went to 504, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And from there, I made battalion sergeant major. And then from battalion sergeant major, I'm one of the few people went from battalion sergeant major all the way to a corps. I jumped all them ranks. But one thing a lot of people don't understand, there were no separate, no battalions in the regiment or any division or any corps or any army that was authorized as sergeant major, command sergeant major, until 1964. Patton didn't have a sergeant major. Eisenhower didn't have one. MacArthur didn't have one. Simple reason, they wasn't authorized one. The only people who was authorized up till 1964 was a regimental, has always been a regimental sergeant major. Even back in the Civil War days and all that, you'll find a regimental sergeant major. And a battalion, it had to be a separate battalion, not a battalion within a regiment. If you had a battalion, like the 1st Battalion, 508, we didn't have them. They had a guy, they called him, but he was a chief clerk, 71 Lima, you know, MOS. And they used him as a sergeant major, but if you looked at his title, it would be chief clerk, not sergeant major, you know, what have you. But then, in 1964, all battalions got sergeant major, division got sergeant major, corps got sergeant major, and the army got sergeant major, see, what have you. And so they sent me to Vietnam when I had 30 years in the Army, when I went to Vietnam. But
how old were you then?
Well, I was 30 years, that was in, let's see, they sent me there in 1970, and I was born in, 23, so I guess I was 57 years old. And I just come out of Korea, which was it was called let's see, what do they call it? It was an undesirable tour. I couldn't take my wife with me, see. And they said, this Command Sergeant Major branch called and said, I can't send you overseas. You just got back from Korea. You've been back 6 months, but at the end of 6 months, I can send you. And we have a lieutenant general here in Desper that his sole purpose in life is to see that every command sergeant major goes to Vietnam. And he says, I have got a prima job for you right now. But if we wait 6 months, you may wind up as a battalion sergeant major fighting in these shrubs over here. I said, what's that assignment you got for me now? He said, you'll be the command sergeant major at Cameron Bay. I said, what do I have to do? He said, you need to send a 1049. That was a letter that you requested all stuff on. That you waiver your 6 months back from Korea. And I was saying, so he did. So I went over there, and I tell you, had one little scrap fight over there, and that was it. Some satchel chargers come into Cameron Bay throwing satchel grenades into the barracks and didn't mount to nothing, you know. And it had more stuff in Fort Bragg. It had massage parlors, ice cream factories, NCO club, officers club, and they even had a little White House built up on the hill for the President Johnson was going to come over there. And I stayed there. Then I come back, and I was getting ready to retire. Now I come back, I got 31 years in the Army. And I had to retire. And the colonel called me in. I was a DISCOM command sergeant major, and he said, guess what? We got an email here. You have been selected, you and 4 other command sergeant majors, for 5 additional years in the Army to see if the enlisted NCOs have any potential after 30 years. I said, oh, okay. I said, and I just come back from Korea and Vietnam. I knew I wasn't going to go nowhere, so I said, I'll take it. And then, when I done that, the Corps commander, Lieutenant General Seitz, one I talked about, he brought me up as his command sergeant major, as a 3-star general. So I stayed there, and that was my second time as a Corps sergeant major, you know. So anyway, then at the end of that 5 additional years, I had 35 years, almost 36 years in, you know, so they kicked me out at 36 years. That was December the 1st, I guess, in 1977. I got out of the Army, you know, with a little over almost 36 years of service, you know, what have you. And
It was a long time.
And here I am with you, you know.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit what it was like to be in an airplane getting ready to jump? What was that experience like? What was everybody thinking, talking, doing? Was it quiet? What was happening?
A regular jump or a combat jump?
Combat jump.
Regular combat jump.
What happened in that plane right, you know, minutes before? What was going on?
Normandy was the one where we all got slaughtered, where we lost everybody except 800 and some odd men. Those were, they looked pretty good. They're calm, they were smoking cigarettes, and the plane was rocking, it was rolling, people were vomiting and everything. It was a mess, and the small arms was hitting that metal plane. You could hear it, what have you. And but up until that time, it was pretty good. But then when we got to go into Holland, you could look down the 2 rows, and you could tell who jumped in Normandy and who didn't.
What was the difference?
The people in Normandy, you know, they were a little shaky. The guys that never jumped, you know, they're kind of calm, you know. They don't know what's going to happen. But lo and behold, so of course Normandy was night jump, and Holland was a day jump, and what have you. And I was a pushmaster in Holland. Pushmaster is the last man in the plane that jumps.
You're kicking the guy almost literally, right?
Yeah, and he also, the middleman throws a toggle switch that releases all equipment bundles underneath the belly of the plane. And the pushmaster, when he comes by, he makes a swipe to be sure all the toggle switches are down. What have you. So I was on, and I watched him. I unhooked and walked all the way down to the end of the plane where the door's at. And I had a second lieutenant there, and he thought I was going to fall out or something. It was his first jump too, you know. And he asked me to go back and hook up. He said, for the troops. And I said, okay, I will. But I noticed him. But we didn't hit no anti-aircraft or no small arm or nothing hit our plane going into Holland. I would say Holland dropped. I would say we probably didn't lose a man in the whole division. It was a milk run, as far as I was concerned. A drop. The whole division was assembled within an hour. That's unreal. They were assembled in an hour and ready to go, you know. And anyway, and then going back to once you made your first 5 qualifying jumps, what have you, people, they sweated those out, I would say, up until you got about 20, 25 jumps. When you got that, you got over the head. Before that, if you come up on the bulletin board that you're jumping tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. You go to bed at night, you think about it. We get over 25 jumps, you get over that. You don't think about it at all until you get ready, the green light, a red light comes on, and you stand up and hook up. Then you got a little butterflies in your stomach. Because it's just not natural for a man to jump out of a plane at 1,500 feet with a little ball of silk on his back. If a guy tells me, no, I've never had butterflies, I'll tell him he's either a liar or he's an idiot, one of the two, you know. But anyway, and I talked to some of these skydivers that's got 3,000, 4,000 feet. They, when they say were they not scared, none at all, they quit. I got a guy who lives right across the street from me, a retired command sergeant major. He's got 4,000 parachute jumps, skydive. And he said he just got careless with them. It didn't bother him at all. He packed his own chute and just throwed it together in 40 minutes or something like that. And said, I just got where I wasn't scared at all. And he said, I decided to quit. So he did, you know. And some of them that's got mostly skydivers, that they jump 15,000 feet, where we jumped at 1,500. They call it target fixation, where they're jumping a 6-inch disc for competition, you know, and they got their eyes fixed on that target fixation, and some of them just keep on watching and never pull the reserve. They go right in on it, you know. But, you know, so anyway, there's very few, but I've heard of 2 or 3 like that happening at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, you know. But anyway.
You mentioned earlier in Holland how you were pinned down by that MG-42.
Yeah.
You've had that experience before, though, right?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
I had fought a MG-42 and 44. We captured them in Normandy, and Colonel Warren Shields had me and all my gunners fire them and make a report what we thought about them. They fire so damn fast, you don't know what in the hell is going on, whether you're hitting anything or not. Firing 1,500 rounds a minute, you know, where ours were firing 600 rounds a minute, you know, what have you. So, anyway, yeah, I was, once you get out of a field of fire, a machine gun, you're safe, you know. Like the guy firing down that road, if you move 10 feet to the right or 10 feet to the left, there's nothing but buildings and sidewalks and telephone poles, and he ain't got no field of fire, you know. You're out of his way, you know. I went back there in 77. Went to the spot where I stopped looking at the bridge. Had machine guns, but this brick building, what have you. And would you believe, them brick buildings still there, and the bullets that hit the brick and just, well, you know, it didn't go through it, just knocked off chips of it. They were still there. They hadn't repaired them or nothing. They're still there, you know.
When you deployed in on the 18th of December, where you were rushed out, so
Yeah.
you were playing your dice, you were say, hey, by 6 o'clock in the morning, you're shipping out. It's winter, it's snowing.
Yeah.
What kind of clothing did you ship out in?
We didn't have nothing. We were the poorest. We had no cold weather gear, none. And I'll tell you, on the 19th day of September, I remember an 18-wheeler full of overshoes. The company on the right, the company on the left going by. What size? 10 or 12. Here's a 14, take it. And some of them young soldiers didn't know, believe it or not, what size to tell them. You know, if they wore an 8 shoe, they needed a 10 overshoe or something like that. And they throwed it, that's all we got. And we got them on the 19th. I don't know how fast they got them up there, but an 18-wheeler come up there, and they had that thing all full of overshoes. And that's all we got. We didn't get nothing else, period.
Gloves?
We had a shelter hat and a blanket rolled up in a horseshoe roll on our back. And we did have the World War I wool overcoat. And it weighed, when it got wet, it weighed a ton, I tell you. I remember the first night, we dug all night long, dug foxhole all night long to keep from freezing to death. And you had to go down, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches of frozen ground before you could really start digging your foxhole. You had to have a pickaxe or something like that to do it with, you know. The ground was cold. But
You mentioned how you saw that MX6 tank,
Mark 6.
Mark 6 tank, the bottom, I guess, of the bridge when it was blown.
Yeah.
Did you ever run into a tank out there?
Did what?
Did you ever run into a tank where you had to deal with a tank in the field?
No, I never. That's as close as I got. And when it went down, the Germans they unasked that. They're gone. They're not there. The guy that blew that bridge, George Lamb, First Lieutenant George Lamb, they put him in for Medal of Honor, and he got the DSC. If he'd got wounded when he done it or something like that, and he kept on going, you know, he'd probably got the Medal of Honor. The regimental demo team was supposed to blow. They blowed it, and it was a dud. And the lieutenant then went with his men. I don't know if he used part of their demolition or all of his. I don't know, but I do know he got the credit for blowing it, you know. He was the one, believe it or not, he was from A Company. He was the one that put me in for the Silver Star, George Lamb, on Hill 131. We're going back to Normandy on July the 4th, 1944. The 1st Battalion, 508, moved at the base. We probably covered this before. We moved to the base of Hill 131 with word to hold that at all costs to the last man. That the 2nd and 3rd Battalion was going to come through us at 6 o'clock in the morning and take Hill 31. When they got up on Hill 31, Then there's Hill 95. The 2nd Battalion was going to take that.
Where is this located in Normandy? Do you recall the closest village?
There wasn't no village. This is just out in the open.
Okay.
When I was in, I went to that, I guess on the 8th or 9th in St. Mary Glees this year. I went to that place. And of course, the vegetation is real, of course, that was 70 years ago, you know, and what have you. But they had a loudspeaker, the Germans did, probably on a tree out there about 1,000 yards. And, it, you know, wanting us to surrender with the pretty frog lines, clean sheets and good chow and all that, we'd surrender, you know. And they kept on building that, you know. And then they had this machine gun raking our front every once in a while, just raking it, you know. So I had 4 water-cooled machine guns online. And so I told the lieutenant that I'm going out there and see if I can't do something to that stupid guy in that tree with that loudspeaker or that machine gun. One, don't have your people to fire on me coming back, you know. So George Lamb said, okay. So I went out there. I didn't.
You went out by yourself?
Oh yeah.
And this was your
I didn't
idea?
take no weapon. I didn't take no weapon. I took 4 gammon grenades. You know what a gammon grenade is? It's a British one, about the size of a softball, and a black, it looks like a black sock. Got a cap on the front with a tape over it to pull the tape off, unscrew the cap, and it goes off on contact. If you was a tank, I could stand here and throw it, nothing comes back. Everything goes forward, you know. So I didn't want no weapons. I had to crawl out there, you know. And it was raining too. Raining and it's miserable. What have you. I walked back. I crawled out and I walked back when I blew up the machine gun, you know.
And this was your idea by yourself?
Yeah, and
you were tired of hearing that speaker and,
yeah,
and him firing at you?
Well, they knocked out one of my machine guns too, with an armor-piercing shell that hit the barrel, the round barrel that held 9 pints of water, and it's water cooled. The A4s are air cooled. This one is water cooled. If you don't have water, you ain't gonna last very long with one of them because it burn up, you know. So what have you. So they used I know my citation reads was one of his machine guns knocked out, but that wasn't what put me out there. I was just getting tired of this crap that he was putting on. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. It was on the morning of the 4th of July, you know. They got the little town that's close to it on the citation, and I don't know what it is, you know, but you know, they used, I guess they said the foot of hill 190 in the vicinity. That's way out of this little town or something, you know, what have you.
So you crawl out there and tell me what happens. What do you see?
I seen 3 people on a machine gun nest. This wasn't my, believe it or not, this wasn't my first machine gun knock. I didn't get nothing for the first one. On D-Day, when we jumped at 2:30, at 7 o'clock in the morning we pinned down, and the lieutenant didn't even know me. There were 17 of us trying to get a symbol. We pinned down, and he said, "Corporal, we had an officer had the vertical white stripe on the back of his helmet. We had the horizontal." He said, "Corporal, take 2 men, go out there and knock out that machine gun," you know. I looked around. I ain't got none of my men. I ain't run on them yet. I don't know these guys. I knew one of them, a supply sergeant that got reduced, staff sergeant. 24 years old. That was an old man in the Airborne. We were 17, 18 years old, 19. I took him and another guy, and this is where we run into the tactics that the Germans was firing. One gun with tracers, 3 feet off the ground. Another with no tracers, a machine gun, firing something like 12, 13 inches off the ground. We got in. So we got in there, and this guy picked the other guy. I didn't know him later on. He come out of the reform school out of Pauls Valley, Oklahoma. And we got, me and this old man, he said, you know, you lay me down base of P.I.R, and he was a small man. He says, I can get under that P.I.R, and he had a gamma grenade. I'll knock out that machine gun. He did with one gamma grenade. I come back, and we moved on after that and picked up 17 more men before daylight. The lieutenant that gave me that order, Lieutenant Abbott, he got killed the next day. Nobody put me in for nothing. The guy that actually threw the grenade got a Bronze Star with a V in it, you know. So
you recall his name?
Yeah, I think his name. He got killed in 50 yards from where that tank was sitting on that bridge. 88, he was dug in on this bank, and 88 direct hit on him, just blew him all to pieces. Oh, I thought I'd never get. He's a guy from Pauls Valley Reform School. He's a good soldier, though. You know, back in them days, they let people out of prison and out of reform schools. The judge would say, I'm gonna let you out, but you're gonna join the army. Mm-hmm. So you've done that, you know. Oh, I'll think of his name. He's listed in the WWII Devils as being killed, you know. Damn. Well, when you get past 90, your mind goes a little bit. It'll come back to me, you know. Yeah.
So how many of the gamma grenades did you need to take out that machine gun the second time?
I threw 2. I had 4. I might have thrown all 4, but the first 2 done the job, you know. Boy, they're powerful, you know. I don't know why we didn't use them in Vietnam. You know. We had a class on them in England. They had put this armor up, an inch armor, and they'd back off this guy and from me to you and throw it, and everything would go forward like that, you know. So nothing would bother you, you know. What was that guy's name, you know? Anyway, I'll think of it. Well, it's 12 o'clock. About time we quit.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks for sitting in on this one.
Mm-hmm.